Today we're going to take a look at the slavery of ancient Greece prophesied throughout the Bible. All right. Not only that, we're going to go through some historical references and some scholarly articles to prove who and where the slaves came from Greece. All right, so we're going to start at Deuteronomy 28. We're going to look at verse 13, and it reads, "And the Lord shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God, which I command thee this day, to observe and to do them. And thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." Right? So we're going to take a look at some of the curses the Lord said was going to come upon us in Deuteronomy 28. We're going to scroll down here to verse 32. Right? "Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand." All right, let's go to verse 48. "Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thee, until he have destroyed thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a fierce nation of countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young." Right, so we're going to take a look particularly at this verse right here, verse 49. So we know that the children of Israel, also called the children of Judah and the children of Jerusalem, northern and southern kingdom, they were told that if we kept the commandments, the Lord would set us above high. And he said that if we did not keep his commandments, he would bring a nation from far against us. Right? This nation in verse 49 is supposed to represent the eagle. The eagle. Okay? So let's take a look at some ancient Greek mythology and see if this lines up with the Bible. The Atos Dios was a giant golden eagle which served as Zeus's personal messenger and animal companion. According to some, it was once a mortal king named Periphas, whose virtuous rule was so celebrated that he became to be honored like a god. Right? Remember, the Most High said not to follow after these false gods of these other nations. Right? So this eagle, let's read this one first, and then we'll talk about it. "The bald eagle stands proud as our national bird, spreads its wings as our national emblem, and serves as a mascot of countless sports teams. So prominent is this iconic bird in our culture that we sometimes overlook a second equally majestic eagle, the golden eagle. While bald eagles are confined to North America, golden eagles are native to Europe and Asia as well. Long before the bald eagle adorned envelopes at the post office, the golden eagle flew the cosmos as personal messengers to Zeus, the ancient Greek overlord." Right? So these ancient Greeks worship Zeus, and they worship the messenger of Zeus, which was the eagle. Right? So the ancient Greeks worshipped the eagle. Right? Here we have a depiction of Zeus and his messenger eagle. Zeus and the eagle. Right? So we go back to verse 49. "And the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand." Now, for those who still don't believe, let's take a look at Ezekiel, and let's see what the Bible prophesies Greece was known for in the ancient world. All right, this is Ezekiel 27 and 13. Greece, Tubal and Meshach did business with you. They traded human beings and articles of bronze for your wares, right? For your storehouses. Wares are storehouses, right? Greece in the ancient world was known for trading human beings, okay? So now, the Lord said if we did not listen to his commandments, that we would go into captivity, and that a nation would come from far like the eagle, and we would serve them, okay? So let's go to Joel chapter 3 and verse 6. Let's see what the prophet had to say. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border. That you might remove them far from their border. All right. Deuteronomy 28:49 said that he would bring a nation from far like the eagle. All right. So the children of Israel were sold to the Greeks and removed far from their borders. They were scattered all across the earth. Okay. Now we're going to take a look here and see where the Greeks, according to history, got their slaves. This is the slave supply in classical Greece, an article done by Cambridge University Press. Right? How did Greeks obtain their slaves? And how did men, women, and children become to be slaves in classical Greece? While statistics are elusive, no one would seriously challenge the fact that there were large numbers of slaves in the Greek world of various kinds and origins. This chapter seeks to explore the processes that brought people into slavery in Greece, and also give sense of some of the individuals' slaves' experience of the process. Right? So we're going to go down right here. The slave trade was everywhere. At the periphery of Greek culture, this is at the height, the periphery, the height of Greek culture, slaves were traded all around the Black Sea, in the Adriatic and in the Eastern Mediterranean and North Africa. So too its traditional centers in Athens, Aegea, Corinth, Chios, and elsewhere. Now, when you take a look at Corinth right here, keep that in mind because that's going to come into play later. It's going to be very important. All right. These slaves, the Greek culture obtained its slaves from the Black Sea, the Adriatic, the Eastern Mediterranean, and in North Africa. Right? These slaves went all the way throughout Athens, Aegina, and Corinth. Right? Let's take a look here first at this article done by the University of Pennsylvania Press. Right? The merchandise, the Mediterranean trade in Black Sea slaves. Remember, it said at the height of Greek culture, these slaves came in from the Mediterranean. They came in from the Black Sea as well. Right? Okay. We'll start here. The history of the Black Sea as a source of Mediterranean slaves stretches from ancient Greek colonies to human trafficking networks in the present day. Remember Ezekiel 27 and 13 said Greece sold bronze and human beings. Ezekiel 27 and 13 said the Greeks sold bronze and human beings. Right? At its height during the 14th and early 15th centuries, the Black Sea slave trade was not the sole source of Mediterranean slaves. Genoese, Venetian, and Egyptian merchants brought captives taken in conflicts throughout the region from North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Balkans, and the Aegean Sea. Right? So these slaves, these Greek slaves, came from North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Balkans, and the Aegean Sea. Yet the trade in Black Sea slaves provided merchants with profit and prestige, states with military recruits, tax revenue, and diplomatic influence, and households with the service of women, men, and children. Right? So these were the Greeks got their slaves from the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Let's take a look at this article here. Remember, just for a quick refresher, The slave trade. The Greeks got their slaves from the Black Sea, Adriatic Sea, Eastern Mediterranean, and North Africa. So now we're going to go to the Sub-Sahara or the Saharan African slave trade. Okay. African captives were moved along the trade route to the Nile and were sold into Cairo's slave markets, both to local slave owners and onward sale. Many were women destined for lives as domestic slaves and concubines. These internal trade slaving routes were not developed solely to the movement of slaves. They were trade routes along which a host of African commodities were transported north from Africa, such as ivory, cola nuts, and other items. Enslaved Africans were often forced to work as porters, carrying other goods being transported north. Right? The best known of these ancient trade routes was those crossing the Sahara. For centuries, caravans of Arab and Berber traders transported African captives from sub-Saharan Africa, trekking along a series of arduous stages to the slave markets of North Africa, the Mediterranean, Asia, and Europe. From the 8th century, demand for African slaves was attenuated by the spread of Islam. The vast networks of trade routes controlled by Muslims were used to capture people and transport African captives far from their homelands. You can't make this shit up. You cannot make this shit up. Islam penetrated even farther south, deep into West Africa, along the East African coast, and far into the African interior. Let's take a look at this again. The vast networks of trade routes controlled by Muslims were used to capture people and transport African captives far from their homelands. Take a look back at Joel 3 and 6. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border. Okay, so right here we have, according to the Bible and according to history, the children of Israel were sold into the Greeks. They were sold into the Greeks. These people sold into the Greeks were known as Africans. They were known as Africans. Okay, let's take a look here. Remember, in Athens, Aegina, and Corinth, right? So Greeks had slave ports in Corinth. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 12 and 2. We all know that Paul and his mission was to the Gentiles. Paul right here is going to clarify who these Gentiles are in Greek captivity. 1 Corinthians 12 and 2. Ye know that ye were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as you were led. Now, who did the Bible say was carried away into Greece? That would be the children of Israel. The children of Israel were called the Gentiles in Corinthians. These are the Corinthians. These are Hellenized Jews. You know that you were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as you were led. All right. Now I said the Greeks also got their slaves from the Mediterranean. Let's take a look here. Black slaves in the Mediterranean world, introduction to a neglected aspect of the African diaspora. Starting right here. Beginning some 8 centuries before the transatlantic slave trade and not ending until several decades after the latter was halted, the movement of slaves across the Sahara, up the Nile Valley, and the Red Sea across the Indian Ocean to the Persian Gulf in India probably accounted for the uprooting of as many black Africans from their societies as did the transatlantic slave trade. All right, Israel, that's going to be all for today. Just a quick cover on the black slaves, the slaves of ancient Greece. Shalom, shalom.